coming out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get about your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out.
Welcome everyone to episode 49. We're live here at Agencynomics. Can't believe I'm one away from 50 episodes. I never really thought we'd actually make it that far, but thank you to everyone who's been supporting the show. I think we're up to something like, according to YouTube stats, 120,000 views totally now across all of the shows on an annual run rate, which is just phenomenal. Today, I've got my very special guest, Caroline Donaghue from V1. Definitely the shortest company name we've had on the episodes, and probably the best domain name ever. But before I come to you, Caroline, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. First of all, thank you to Caitlin, as always, for making sure that these shows all work technically, and to Abby for making sure that the guests all know where to come at the right time. And a massive thank you to our sponsors, Forecast, who are basically the reason why we're able to do this show, because they help us fund all of the community. Agencyphonics, Agencynomics, as you all know by now, is a not-for-profit social enterprise, and we're really grateful for all the support they give us. So if you get 5 minutes, check out the show notes, have a look at Forecast. They do amazing project management software to help agencies manage their projects and services. That was my intro done. Caroline, welcome.
Hi, Spencer. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's great to have you here today. So I thought we'd really sort of, maybe before we start going into your role today at V1 and what you do, and there's lots of, I want to cover off lots of different subjects today, especially around sort of areas of mindset, which I think you're a really great example of someone who invests in their mindset and the future you. But can you tell us a bit about your career, your agency career? How did you get to V1? What did you do? What was the sort of the backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. So backstory, I guess, started when I was younger, and I loved anything in the creative world. So I was an artist. I was into anything kind of around creativity, around production. I was not academic at all. Definitely not school academic. Any academic subject was not my thing. Loved creativity. And I think from an early age, I actually started knowing that I wanted to do something in the creative world. I went to work experience, as you do when you're at school, and I went to a creative agency and a brand agency. And that showed me the commercialization of creativity or creative design and art, and actually how to tangibly bring it to life through real life experiences, I suppose. So I studied design at university. Throughout my whole journey, I was still doing work experience. And I think this is really important actually for people starting out, is to understand what real life looks like in a few years' time after you've graduated. So I had a very clear picture as to what agencies did, what I wanted to do within them. I started studying design. I quickly realized that design perhaps wasn't my thing, and that actually I'd prefer to be client services. So worked and had all that experience, graduated, and I ended up working for an agency that were part of Saatchi & Saatchi. I joined as a junior account exec. I remember, funnily enough, going for the interview and thinking, this is great. These guys are part of Saatchi & Saatchi. My dad saying to me, well, you do know that all their clients are real estate clients. They're all property clients. And at the time, I didn't really kind of understand the full implications of that, and just thought, well, that's great. I'll go and work at Saatchi & Saatchi and move to New York in a couple of years, get some experience under my belt and work with really exciting brands. As it happened, I ended up specializing in real estate and just caught the bug. I absolutely love anything to do with real estate, particularly marketing, brand, creativeness, production, visualization. So the agency was a company called Sectorlight. We went through a management buyout after a couple of years of being at Saatchi's. We merged, we demerged, was there for just under 18 years. So saw the whole journey from being a real junior up to kind of senior director stage. left in December 2019 and joined V1. So V1 are a specialist in visualization, so computer generated images, VR assets, and I'd known them for many years. So I'd actually known them. We'd worked on a project. Funny enough, it was the Shard, which lots of people know of. So we'd worked on the Shard together. We were doing some of the marketing work. V1 were doing the visualization work. So that was probably like 12 years ago. Since then, we'd worked on most of our flagship projects together. So any international work, any local work, I would always get V1 to come in as a kind of an extension of our team and to deliver to clients. Also, they were also kind of appointed directly from clients as well. So we had this amazing relationship over really 12 years. And then 2019, I kind of stepped across and joined the board at V1 to just specialize in that.
I mean, first of all, it is fascinating, that story, because I did a talk last week to Green Jam, which is basically people who work in the advertising industry. That maybe they've been in there less than 5 years old. And I did a talk on future-proofing your agency career. And I sort of made the observation that, you know, there is no longer such a thing as a job for life. You know, you won't be in a job for 20 years anymore, or maybe 30 or 40, but you pretty much were there for 20 years. It's quite an achievement to have stayed at one company for so long. So you must have really loved it there.
I did love it there. And I also think, and I was thinking about this morning, I think as long as you're moving forward, like there's a key to, there's a great quote about happiness, that happiness is moving forward. And as long as you're developing and you're moving forward, and for me, that was, you know, the agency growing, the agency going through various different changes, growing the client services. And as long as you're constant and you feel part of that, and I think that's the key thing, is as long as you feel part of that and you're moving forward personally, but you're moving forward with the agency and you're contributing to that agency DNA and you're contributing to the makeup of that. And, you know, I think the culture has changed. Now I think people do stay for 2-3 years and they leave quite quickly, but equally, I don't know if that's a time, time will change.
I guess one of the things I sort of raised at that was, it's probably what you said, which was, you know, you don't always have to jump around to progress your career.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, sitting down with the founder of the agency, or even just flipping it around, the founder of the agency being more transparent about and saying where your future, you know, where your future wants to be, and then investing in you and helping you not have to leave to have that career path. I mean, you went in as an account, whatever it was, exec, or you ended up as a director in the company, which is a fantastic achievement to see that transition. And I would imagine that there's probably more benefit to you having all those relationships that you built at that agency and connections may have been more valuable than jumping around and having lots of shorter relationships with people, you know. And as you rightly said, I mean, you obviously worked with a partner agency and you ended up becoming a director in that business net. Right? So clearly that helped in some way build that network up. It's really interesting to hear that perspective. I do think there is definitely a lesson to be shared there, which is, you know, it is important to try and map out where you want your career to go, and not necessarily always think that sometimes a change of environment is probably a good thing if the company are investing in you, but sometimes sit down with your agencies. And I mean, did they invest much with you on that journey? Do you feel, was there a lot of training or?
There was a lot of investment on that side. There was some training. There was a lot more kind of collaboration, I think. So there was a lot of, it was a two-way street. I think there was a lot of talking about where we wanted to go as an agency, what the future was, and then also, you know, where do we want to go personally, and how do the two marry up as well? And I think, you know, a lot of companies perhaps don't do that so much. And I think also the other thing about people jumping around every couple of years. Now, the real estate market is a very small market. So, you know, we're meeting new people all the time, but fundamentally it's a small market. And actually, you know, the people that I was doing business with 19 years ago, I'm still doing business with them. Wow. I'm still in contact. I'm in contact now with actually some of my very, very first clients when I joined as a junior. I'm still in contact with those people. And this is what I'm trying to kind of say to a lot of younger, more junior people is the contacts you meet now, you may, and it's different if you're jumping around to different industries. If you stay in that same industry, the chances are you will still be in contact with them in 5, 10, 15 years time. And if you're jumping around, you might not have that consistency. But what you do have, if you stay in an industry, not necessarily the same agency, but if you stay in that industry, you have an element of trust, and people know you and they're familiar with you. And you can't not know somebody for 18 years and know what they're like. Are they going to deliver? Can I trust them? Am I going to enjoy spending time with them? And they're the kind of real key attributes.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it so many times where, people work with, when they're smaller agencies, junior marketing managers as clients, or marketing managers that 5-10 years later are CMOs, marketing directors. And actually there's been a bond and a loyalty through those years. And we know it's one of the largest ways that leads are generated in agencies is by client recommendation. So, and the relationships you have with clients that you've known a long time, that trust you, they're often the best pieces of work as well. So I think I love what I love about your story there is actually it's a really big benefit of the niche of what, working in a niche, which is actually the world probably becomes quite small. When you work in a niche sector like you guys do, actually you realize how few people there actually are in probably the roles that you're speaking to about what you do. It's not like it's tens of thousands of people. It ends up being hundreds of people, and it doesn't take long to get to know everyone. It's quite a small world. The world gets smaller, right?
It does, yeah. It does get smaller, but there's always new people. This is the one thing that amazes me, even in central London, which is where the majority, I guess, of the prime work that we work on is based. There's still new people. Every day we're still meeting new people, but somehow they're connected. So you're never going to meet somebody who doesn't know somebody else, or everybody is somehow connected. And then what's also really interesting is a lot of those people will leave and they might go to join a company internationally. So they might go to the Middle East. They might go to the US. So all of a sudden that network does grow. But I think that's just so interesting that people, they are here for the long term. And the other really fascinating thing is that you might not hear from them for 10 years. Actually, you might work with somebody for 2-3 years. You might lightly keep in touch with them. And then all of a sudden, I found anyway, that people will just pop out of nowhere 10 years later and get back in touch.
Yeah.
Which is lovely.
I was with a client a couple of months ago at a board meeting, and I might have told this story on the last episode, but I'll say it again anyway, which was the biggest opportunity in the pipeline for that month was someone the founder had met 6 years ago, at an event, and 6 years later it's the large. And that's the thing about this industry, isn't it, is that B2B sales is a long, slow sales cycle often. And I imagine with you guys, because you're working on quite a niche service, right? You're doing visual effects, special effects. It's not, it's something that potentially I would imagine, clients will come to, and prospects would come to you at a certain time. At some stage in the future, there's a new development. They need to visualize and bring that development to life. And you've just got to be at the right place at the right time so they don't forget you, I suppose, although you're the market leaders, so probably they don't forget you. But it is important, isn't it, to have long-term relationships and be able to keep being at the front of mind with everybody.
Yeah, it really is that. I think that's a really good point in terms of just being lucky with timing. Sometimes you can be so lucky and you can reach out to somebody and they'll just say, do you know what, this is the best timing ever. And then something might happen. Equally, for our clients, they might not have a project for 2 or 3 years. So we might be appointed on something. They then don't have to brief any work out for the next 2-3 years. So it's about keeping in touch with those people throughout that period when they're dormant from needing work from us. Because actually sooner or later they will. But again, it's exactly that, trying to stay front of mind so that when they do need that work, they can see what we've been doing. They can see we're active. They can see the caliber of our work. They can see the different technologies we've been using, so that when the time comes, then they can see that actually, we are front of mind for that.
Great. And so now today, obviously, you're the director in V1, and you've got this very niche service and a very niche sector. You're working, I guess, with international property and and luxury firms. So how's that been through COVID? Because it must be quite difficult. You haven't been able to go and see anyone. Has it made it easier or harder, or what's your take on things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a bit of both, actually, a bit of both. So our we do a lot of work internationally. We do a lot in the UK, particularly in London. Internationally, throughout COVID, our international market got quite quiet.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, and this is, again, our business is very reliant on the real estate markets and the health of that. So we reflect what's happening in the real estate market, really. So central London actually held its ground throughout COVID. So actually a lot of our central London projects remained really busy. A lot of our international projects got a lot quieter. So that's existing clients. We've seen a huge amount of new business come through, new clients come through from an international perspective since January. So I think now, different countries have got their own issues, their own challenges around COVID, around their real estate industry and their creative industry. And we have to be reflective and mindful of that. So I think it's interesting. I think what we'll see now is certainly an increase in international projects coming through again. We're certainly already seeing a big increase, and hopefully that stays that way.
I'm guessing that there's a massive repurposing going on of why people use office space or buildings generally. The use of that is changing. So maybe it's retail, maybe I don't know, maybe it is more hotels, maybe it's less office space as such, maybe more co-working. Are you seeing any evidence? Are you guys being asked at all? This may be a no, but are you guys being asked to almost reimagine workspaces of the future now, or anything like that at all? Or have you seen any trends around that?
Yeah, huge trends. Yeah. I think absolutely. It's one thing I'm really passionate about is like the office space. So I think, a year ago, people were thinking the office is dead. No one's ever going to go back to the office. A lot of our clients were exactly that, reimagining the office space. And actually, it's funny because a lot of what I call the leaders in the office world were already reimagining this. So they were already predicting this was happening. These trends have been happening. This has just accelerated that trend. So a lot of our clients have already been investing in well-being, in co-working, in different types of space. And I think what's really interesting is office space isn't a place you work, right? You can work anywhere. Office space isn't just a place you can work. It's a place that you get mental stimulation. It's a place that you get inspired. It's a place that you meet people. Actually, it's quite a sociable place as well. So there's all those factors that go into office space. So it's really interesting now seeing those briefs come through to us and seeing how they're changing and seeing how people are reacting to new demands. And the office space is actually it's restructuring. It's like rejigging itself, and people are restructuring, but they're not necessarily stopping going into the office. I think things are changing, and the whole way things are changing is really interesting. And we're seeing new retail, big department stores are now actually becoming office space. And there's still a drive for office space. It's just, how does that get reimagined into a place where people really want to go to work? Yeah, they really look forward to it.
That's quite interesting, because I think someone once said to me, once you've worked in a sector or in an area or a specialism for 6 years, you start to get good intuition about how it's going to change, because you're in it. I guess you are very close. You've been very close to it. You've seen how, you probably through your career certainly seen how London has transformed in terms of the way the skyline has changed in terms of those big builds, including the Shard. And so I like what you just said then about it being accelerated, because I think there certainly was this kind of trend to create almost a second home, office that was a second home, that was almost like, because I have this theory, right, that if you have a really good company culture, that culture is based on values and behaviors of the employees. And if you have certain values and behaviors at home, you should want to go to the office and not be someone different and be the same person. Bring those values and those behaviors to the office. And therefore, the people that you're working with should be quite like-minded. They should be very similar, have similar belief systems, similar behaviors, similar values, and therefore actually coming together, that's what is at the heart, isn't it, of most agency cultures. Now, I think the no office agenda, I'm now going to call it, is still going to have to create, and I've heard this from the States, that they're going to be creating these environments they're going to be creating sort of regular company meetings, which could actually have a negative impact on the environment, and could have a negative, because we might start traveling to locations, and also could end up costing just as much as probably paying for an office. But I still feel that this kind of having an office now that, where you could hot desk, where you could meet, where you could, socialize, you could entertain, you could do different things.
Yeah.
Makes more sense to me. And have you seen anyone doing that already? Have you personally seen anyone starting to introduce those types of offices that are a little bit different?
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing a lot of those types of offices coming through now. So they're not necessarily being delivered, but they are definitely coming through. And I think, from a creative perspective, you have to be, okay, I'm not controversial here, you don't have to be in the office all the time, but you have to be with people who are going to inspire you. You have to bounce ideas off each other. If you're in a creative agency, you cannot do that 100% all the time from home. You need to grow, you need to bounce ideas, you need to collaborate, you need to have those little chats. Creative people need that stimulation that you just don't always get at home when you're sitting at home with the same people in the same environment. Right? You need to go out onto the street and you see something that just inspires you or puts a smile on your face, or again, I think it's so important that creative people aren't almost suppressed into working from home, where actually all their kind of creativity just starts to be suppressed as well.
Because I think actually, I think most people, I'd like to think most people recognize that and realize that. I think I've definitely seen, obviously there's many different roles in an agency, certain roles, people feeling like they can just be more productive working collaboratively remotely. But I also feel that actually, if you can take away the getting stuck in the commute, and you can create collaboration in a space where you haven't got people who've been stressed out because they've been stuck for 2 hours getting to the office in the morning, and that people can make the time flexible and make work more smarter, the creativity should go up, I would have thought, rather than forced in an office for 8 hours and then told to be creative. I think actually what you say, people are sort of went the other way a little bit. The benefits of flexibility are there, but it doesn't mean that there aren't some major advantages to going in the office. So it's how do you get the both to work side by side fluidly, and also to cater for different people, because some people want to go in the office because they don't want to be boxed up in a small place where they live, or maybe they've got a young family, or maybe they've got distractions of where they are, and other people want to be net close to their family and seeing the kids at the end of the day picking up from school or whatever. So it's trying to then get a team of individuals that kind of can somehow come together and almost work together in a way that everyone feels is a positive experience. So I think it must be exciting. I'm excited actually. I know that you have sort of gone on a personal journey in the last few months of being, because obviously I know you've had this career in sort of started off in client services, and now as a director of V1 you're much more commercially focused, but yet you've become more visible. You've actually started to talk and observe and talk about these trends on LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of your posts and stuff. So how has your job changed, would you say, in the last year or so, in terms of the way you've approached it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the nice thing about joining V1 was that there was never that role there before. So I've had the great opportunity of creating that role, which is a brilliant opportunity for anyone to kind of start from scratch a little bit. So how do we want to communicate? And then also individually, how do we want to communicate? And I think I felt that I'd got to the point, I had so much experience, and I had some opinions and some ideas as well. And I had this voice, which I really wanted to start speaking, and I think I really wanted to start talking to people and sharing perhaps some of the experience I've had, sharing some thoughts, sharing some kind of passions I have around kind of technology and around the future of where property marketing in particular is heading and how we can kind of really work around that. So I think for me, it was definitely having that opportunity to create something and kind of create our own path forward somehow, but also within that kind of combination of sharing some of that experience that I have, and working with different people to bring that through.
V1 seemed like a company that's very focused on delivering a great service, but maybe isn't necessarily one that markets itself quite aggressively or whatever. And so you obviously come in and you now, I mean, have people noticed the changes since you've kind of been talking and shouting a bit more about the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, people have really noticed the changes, actually. So what's interesting is V1 business before I joined was predominantly referrals, repeat business, organic business, but which is phenomenal. I mean, it's a great example of what brilliant service and delivery does is you get more and more referrals. But yeah, the team there was just no investment in marketing per se, because actually the focus was very much on client delivery, on quality of product, on quality of service, and quality of the end result. So what's been nice now is to actually talk about what we're up to. And I've seen so many people, even if I'm just chatting to somebody on the phone or I might be having lunch with somebody, everybody seems to know what we're up to. And sometimes it's funny, you don't realize that you're posting away on LinkedIn or I don't know, whatever else you're doing, you're posting on Instagram as well. And you don't really realize that, I don't know, say 50 people might like your post. What you don't realize is that 800 people are looking at it and they're making a mental note of it. So sometimes I have, people that I haven't spoken to in years, and they say, oh, I love that project that you put on last week about New York. And I would just think, God, I can't believe that you saw that. I can't believe that you are clocking these things and actually making mental notes of the activity we're doing. So I certainly think that our approach, which has been and will remain to be, we're not loud marketers. We're never going to be loud and brash, and we're never going to be out there. We're never going to be shouty as a brand. We're just not a shouty brand. We're much more of a refined brand that will talk to people and tell people what we've been doing and communicate in that respect. And I think that's worked a lot in terms of increasing our profile and also international reach as well. So a lot of international potential clients have started to come through and really notice us in that respect as well, which has been amazing to see.
It's funny because I really recognize everything you just said as well myself. I think, it's funny, LinkedIn, because, I can do posts. Some of the posts, I've seen some of your posts. You've had some brilliant engagement on some of them, like, hundreds of likes. It's really great. Yeah. And you haven't been doing it very long, because I'm sure when a year ago, most you weren't really doing anything, and then you've really transformed that area. But I've noticed that sometimes the posts that I get the least likes on, I actually get the most leads from. I get people going, want to work. It's like, and then sometimes sometimes it's they're all comments, and sometimes it's all likes, and sometimes I think no one's really hearing or knowing what we're up to. And I'll meet a person and they'll say, oh, you guys are really, really good. And I'm like, really? I never see you like or comment on anything. So it is fascinating that. And I think it's something that we mustn't all forget, that, it doesn't. And something, Caroline, we did a clubhouse last night, and we've had like up to 100 people come to clubhouses. But last night was like, there was like 4 people there. I mean, it was about 8 on the panel and 4 in the audience, right? And it was, to be fair, it was just the most brilliant conversation.
Okay.
I'd definitely love to have you on the panel as well, actually.
Yeah, lovely.
I rope you into it, but to get another perspective on there. But look, sure, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the football week, maybe it's just one of those weeks. I think everyone's very busy in agencies at the moment, and maybe it's one of those weeks and one of those dates where maybe there wasn't going to be a lot of people in the audience. However, today I got an email, or I got a LinkedIn message from a journalist who happened to be one of the 4 people on the panel, looking for some quotes on PR. And, see this, in fact, Dan just mentioned in the notes there, serendipity is a real thing in our industry, but it just goes to show all of this stuff that we do does create serendipitous moments and opportunities. And I think if you don't do these things, then you don't get the results. And I think you've also got like you were sort of saying to me a couple of months back that you've actually built some quite good networks as well now with other colleagues on WhatsApp and things like that, where you can keep in touch with people, and that's been working really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. I think it's about finding your tribe almost, and it's about finding people, that are, a lot of this is down to networking as well. It's finding your tribe that that have a similar mindset, have similar business objectives, who are perhaps obviously in your industry, but may not be directly connected, but people who can kind of support you, who can motivate you, but also people that can inspire you as well. And I think that's the really lovely thing, is surrounding yourself by those people who can inspire you, who can kind of make you up your game. I think that's the really interesting thing, is when I see somebody who I'm closely connected to, or might be part of my kind of little group, when I see them doing well, I'm so happy for them. But actually at the same time, I think, like, how do I start up in my game as well? Because this is really inspiring me. I think that's really important, that you've got to just surround yourself by those people.
I mean, one of the things that I really admire about you is that, and when you do the job that I do, I have to go and work with lots of different people whose mindsets are often in lots of different places. And, you're someone, and in fact, I wrote a post earlier on this week about how when I was 22 and I was working in retail, and maybe my career wasn't looking so good. I built a computer in my spare time. I learned how to connect to the internet, even though in '93 it would take you 6 hours to get a connection. But I learned how to build websites. I invested in the future version of me outside of my job, because ultimately I knew that I needed to do that to break out and to not necessarily be stuck, in that particular career, which may not give me as many opportunities. And I think, like with you, I think one of the things I've noticed about you is you also invest quite heavily in yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
You're not afraid to do that. Like, I know that last year, for example, you went and paid Tony Robbins that extortionate amount of money to go and do his course, which you told me was phenomenal, and I was like really wishing I'd been on it as well. But you're not afraid to make investments, are you, in things that you believe can help you become a better version of you?
I think that's exactly it. Yeah, it's becoming a better version of you, because actually you can spend all your time and your money on, material things and so on, but actually, like, well, how are they going to benefit you really? Like, actually, it's about yourself. How do you become a better person of yourself, for yourself, and then for the people around you? How can you contribute to other people's lives? And I do invest a lot of money in that now, because I just think it's so important that it is around that mindset. And actually, it's not just investing in learning and kind of developing new things, but actually it is a lot of it's around mindset and how we are all growing. We never stop learning. So actually, how do you kind of create the best scenario out of what we've currently got, and how do we move forward? And I love I'm a big fan of the Tony Robbins courses, and I took a lot of time off last year. We couldn't go anywhere. Couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. I did loads of DIY. DIY and Tony Robbins was my annual leave last year.
Did you have to get up at some god earthly hour in the morning though to do it, or was it?
I did actually. So I did 2 courses last year. One was Miami time, which was really hard. It was 7 days, US time, like crazy. We weren't going to sleep till kind of 5 a.m. Was our night time, and then sleeping through until the afternoon. So it's an emotionally and mentally, it's a really big investment, and it's very exhausting. It's a big investment, but I just think, oh my gosh, it's paid off 20 times over. It really has. All these little things that you listen to on podcasts, that you might do a course on, actually you might look back and think, did that really benefit me? And then you start to see over, again, it's like a long-term outlook. You start to see over 6 to 12 months how all these little things start to chip away. Well, not chip away, they start to add to, like they start to kind of build up these building blocks. And it might just be one tiny little thing. I think if I learn one tiny little thing from a course or from whatever else I'm studying, it adds to so much. It kind of creates so much.
Yeah, there's a compound growth of it. And I think
it's the compound effect,
you don't always maybe necessarily see the benefits straight away from what you've done, but eventually those things that sink in, they kind of just suddenly naturally come out at the right time and the right moment, and you do it in a certain way. And I think it's funny because I used to always speak a little bit anti Tony Robbins because I'm quite a hyper person. So whenever I'd hear him being hyper, I was like, but actually, you know, I remember listening to a lot of the Jim Rohn stuff, his old, found these old, a friend actually sent me them in the post and said, well, if you don't like him, you'll probably like Jim Rohn. And I listened to all of his CDs and I loved them. And I really connected and resonated with them. And a lot of the things that he said, I still really are part of my core, my belief system, my behavior system today. You know, some of the mantras that he uses in there. And I think, you know, I've worked with some clients who've had who they're in agencies. It's very difficult because when you're running an agency as well, when you work or run an agency, when you're a leadership team of an agency, there's always ups and downs. There's always challenges there, and having that sort of mental resilience is really important, and that mental toughness. And so I think, you know, I've actually told clients to go and listen to the podcasts of Tony Robbins on many occasions, and I've got to say the ones that do it, their mindsets do change. They come back and they just have a little bit more belief, a little bit more optimism, a little bit more positivity. And I think it's a really, really powerful thing. If anyone is struggling with motivation and drive, is, you know, find these courses and do them, you know.
Yeah, it's so important. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. And I think it was Tony Robbins that said exactly that the formula for happiness is progression. And if you're not progressing, you're staying still. If you're staying still, you're stagnating. And stagnating, therefore, brings unhappiness, depression, and so on. And I do think it's so important to be learning, but also it's the psychology, I think, behind a lot of this is not necessarily something you can just do on your own. You don't know what you don't know. Actually, in the moment you start to unravel this, you start to understand what's holding you back. And the psychology, you know, your own psychology as to what is holding you back, what are your fears, and you know, we're all scared of being rejected and humiliated and embarrassed and all those things. But when you start to pick it apart, which is what a lot of these people do, and Tony Robbins and Joe Rowan do exactly the same, which is just pick it apart and you start to understand, how you're programmed, I suppose, and then you can start to retrain yourself into thinking differently.
Now, one of the things, I love it. And I think it's, you know, we don't talk about this enough. And someone's just saying that on the comments that Gareth, that his business partner himself have been studying the Bob Proctor course. And, you know, I think, you know, I do think that even if it's just to mix things up in life, you know, anyone listening to this should maybe just try some. I mean, I remember listening to this amazing Australian creative a few years ago, and the runner Roger Black used to run these creative thinking events, and he had this Australian keynote speaker talking, and he said it was a great talk what he gave, and he said every day try and do something different, break the routines. Like, you're going to drive to work, not that many of us do that anymore, but if you drive to work, take a different route. Go to a shop, don't buy the same magazine, buy something you never would read before. I did a course in anthropology about a couple of years ago. I was like, do you know what? I'm quite fascinated by human behavior, and actually I'd like to just go and learn a bit more about what anthropology can teach about that. And I just think it's important to mix things up. Otherwise we are creatures of habit, and we can end up just doing the same old stuff, the same old way every day, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
So the one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and which I don't really talk enough about on here, and I think it's something that, you know, it often, I think for me gets overlooked, and is sort of start of day and end of day routines. And So I don't know how many people listening know this, but I'm not sure if I've spoken about it before, but every day I have a daily gratitude list. I have a list. It's getting longer and longer, actually. Since I mean, and for those, just to explain, my journey was, I bought a book called The 5 Minute Journal. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that, Caroline. A brilliant book. And I was feeling a little bit low, and I'd lost my happiness. I felt like I lost my mojo about 2-3 years ago. A couple of things happened, and I realized that I just was not tuning into the things that went well every day. I started tuning into things that went wrong every day. And I'm human like everybody else. And I'm always known for being the upbeat person. So I've got this book. Tim Ferriss recommended it, and I used it, and it really helped. And each day you had to be grateful for 3 things. And actually what I learned was those 3 things turned into about 30 things. And I ended up so I now create this start of day routine. I have a daily gratitude list. I'm actually grateful for not just what I have, but also for future outcomes as well. I'm grateful for, and I find that I never understand how the universe works, but what I do know is that somewhere along the line there's a subconscious focus on these things that I read out, and it's amazing how much more serendipity happens to me when I do focus on these things. So I have that, and then more recently I've learned, and I've only just learned this very recently, that when I was younger, I used to wear a suit to work, and then you'd get home and you'd get changed into your casual clothes. You put your jeans on, and you'd have a mental switch off from work and the evening. And these days, I mean, even before lockdown, you especially in the agency world, although you look very smartly dressed, but I mean, I'm always in jeans and a top, and I'm in jeans and a top in the evening. So I found that there was no switch off between the day and the evening. And in fact, sometimes then being present is quite difficult when you finish work. You end up still thinking about all the things from work all the day. It goes, and before you know it, it's 9 o'clock and you've not really had any time to recharge. So I was fascinated to learn that you have similar routine, or you don't have similar, you have your own start of day and end of day routine as well. Can you talk about that at all?
I do, yeah, absolutely. No, I have I have quite a long morning routine, and it's something that I chop and change every so often. So, again, what I find is that what works for me now, you will find will work for you for a couple of months, and then you'll get to a point where you plateau with that. And then which is a really good thing, because actually you're achieving what you want to achieve. And then I will rework my routine to reflect what I want to achieve in coming months and so on. So I start my morning with some meditation. So huge fan of meditation. So I'll probably do like a 20-minute meditation every single morning before I do anything else. I then will do a little bit of yoga. A bit of yoga every morning. And then
I'm just not flexible enough. It just hurts me too much.
We all start out like that though, Spencer. You just need to keep on practicing. Just keep on at it, and you'll get there eventually.
I've ever got past downward dog. That's about it for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, a little bit more practice then. So yeah, a bit of yoga. And then also I do a lot of visualization, and that might just be visualization. It might be a visualization meditation, and affirmations as well. And then a cold shower. And so I used to hate the cold showers. But actually, when you start to look at the benefits of cold showers, it's just unbelievable. So I cheat. I start with a hot shower, end with a cold shower, and that sets you up for the day. So then I think that's starting that morning, and never check your phone, right? Never ever check your phone until I've done that, because actually your mind has had that whole night to sleep and to rest, and might have something on your mind, but ultimately it's probably had a good night's sleep. The moment you wake up, you check Instagram, you check your emails, whether you like it or not, there is a thought that's gone into your mind, and that could be a big distraction, it could be a big worry, or it could just be it could be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it could be a good thing that's then starting to kind of take away from your intention. So I try, it's not always easy, but I try not to check my phone until I'm then getting ready to go to the office, and then my mind can like start to be engaged into what's going to happen that day.
So I really like that you separate that. I know I've heard a lot of people say that. I'm terrible. I really am. Like, I need to definitely, I will check my phone. My daily routine, I tend to start a bit off, but I should switch that around, because I think it isn't, you just end up being too reactive, don't you, to the day, rather than almost being proactive for the day. And I think that's a really good lesson now. I think I'm going to do my best to try that in the next week, force myself, because it's habitual, isn't it? You get in the habit of doing these things. Like, I find myself getting caught up doing, like, looking at my phone, watching a movie, great. Then the next thing I know, I'm watching a movie and I'm grabbing my phone to check if there's any messages. And it's like just so easy to do it. I have to throw the phone now. I throw the phone across the lounge. So I go,
and then you haven't seen the movie.
Otherwise I'm like, I don't know why. But so how do you switch the end of day routine? Like, how do you? You've got something that helps you switch off?
So not so much switch off, but actually I do gratitude at the end of the day. So it doesn't take very long. It can just be 5 minutes. I have a little book that I write, a bit like you actually. I started off, and a friend introduced me to this, and she gave me as a present, because she gave me a present to start this gratitude book, and I was a bit unsure, and I was thinking, well, I'm not quite sure about this. And then the more, again, kind of self-development I did, I found that everybody was talking about gratitude practices. And everybody was talking, and the most successful people who I'm inspired by are talking about gratitude. So I kind of thought, okay, there's got to be something in this. So you start off, and I do minimum of 3 things I'm grateful for that day. And when you start, you're thinking, well, I don't know, like, what am I grateful for? But my rules are, like, it can be anything. So it can be, I was grateful for, I don't know, somebody held a door open for me when I was struggling with loads of boxes. It could be, the taxi turned up 5 minutes out, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But 3 things I'm grateful for. And actually, a bit like you said, you end up writing 30 things you're grateful for, and you end up doing this huge kind of brain dump. And then actually what happens is you start to switch on your mind to be a receiver of just being, grateful and looking out for these things. And then throughout the day, the more you do this, the more you just see just amazing things in, to the smallest happenings you just start to feel grateful for. So I do that. And then actually talking about mobile phones, my mobile phone goes outside the room. My alarm goes on, and that's something new. Actually, I sleep without my phone in the same room, which has actually really helped my sleep. So
I think it also makes you appreciate the little things. Like I cycled down to I think it was Monday morning. One day this week I cycled down to a village. It's about 3 miles from where I am, and I went there and I went to go and just get a couple of bits of food for the house we were missing. Turned up, didn't have my mask on me. Poked my head through the door. Then very big warning: no entry, no mask. And I was like, hi, do you guys sell masks? No. And I'm like 3 miles on my bike. I'm like, oh God. And then this like 80-year-old lady came up to me, walked out the store, had obviously heard what I said, and then came up to me as I was unlocking my bike after spending ages locking the bloody thing up, saying, I've got a pack in my car if you'd like a couple of masks. So it's like, it's so nice when these things happen.
Yeah.
And but I think it's really important to remember and appreciate and be grateful for those things. And what I've learned as well is actually when things really piss me off and really annoy me, and like certain things, rather than getting angry and frustrated about it, I kind of switch it now, and I sort of say, look, I'm grateful for I'm grateful for the people that aggravate me or whatever it is. And it's really weird, but logically it's like, you know what, that's just the way it is. And actually it just helps me deal with any anxieties that I get as well.
It does. It starts to give you distance somehow. Like, it starts to give you a bit of detachment.
Yeah.
So actually you don't, I personally, I found you become less reactive. So if, with those people that might annoy you or trigger you somehow, it does just give you that kind of point of separation where, you can just see another side of things.
Because actually I've got out of the routine of meditating recently, because I went through I think it was about a year before last. I almost did the whole year. And there was like the voices in my head had disappeared. It was that much meditation. It was brilliant. I was like, it's strangely quiet in there, and And then I noticed of late, you know, that I'm not quite as resilient when people are pushing
Yeah.
buttons. And I was like, oh, so I've got to go back to it and just learn to, you know, to just not get as affected and detach a little bit more from the way this crazy world is. But it's really fascinating talking to you about it. And I do think it is a really important part. As I say in business, I think if you can get your mindset right, and you can help yourself set yourself up for the start of day. I think the end of day thing with lockdown has been a big problem. I think, you know, I've seen a lot of friends, you know, I've got a lot of friends who I meet in the evenings and over the last few months, and I can still see that they're still, head's still whirring, and they struggle to be present. And I think, you know, we all need to work a little bit harder on trying to switch off. And I know there's been some big movements around, you know, banning people emailing after certain times. But I think it's more than that. I think it's more around the self-control that you have to just put the phone down, or to just, you know, to prioritize some of those really positive behaviors. So
yeah, absolutely. And also I know that you know, I'm not great working from home. I can work from home, but I know that I work better when I'm in the office. You know, I like to be around people, and therefore I've taken that responsibility on myself, and I've made sure that I've done what works for me. And you know, we came back to the office quite early. So I think it's important that people kind of understand that working from home works really well for some people. It doesn't work for everyone. And it, you know, it's really tough. It's really tough for people to know how to respond to that. It's not easy.
Lastly, one of the other things I've noticed is I've seen from your LinkedIn that I think you've done some award judging recently. You've been doing a couple of speaking events as well.
Yeah.
Like, you're quite new to that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So were there any tips around how you kind of got to do that, and or how you handled it? I mean, in terms of like being new to it, for anyone out there who knows they need to get more involved, you know, with other things that are going to help raise their profile.
Yeah, I think for me, it was very much around like setting my path. So actually I knew, and again, it's not always about rushing into these things. So I knew that I wanted to kind of raise my profile. I knew that I wanted to get involved more in some kind of industry awards or industry organizations somehow. And I kind of set my path on that way. And again, a lot of it started to, once, you know, sounding a bit woo-woo again here, but actually once you set that intention, and I think once you're heading down that path, as long as you're moving forward in the right direction, things will start to happen. So I kind of knew where I wanted to be, kind of some of the organizations that I wanted to start kind of contributing to. And the more I kind of opened up myself, and the more I started to talk, you know, the more networking I did, the more people I just started to kind of meet, really. And it's funny, it all happened very organically, but without me forcing it, which is actually really funny. So I think, you know, I didn't force any of those things, but I knew I wanted them to happen. So naturally I met the right people, and then naturally I was able to ask the right questions. And funnily enough, I happened to engage with the right people at the right time, and it all just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether, you know, I'm totally there with you, by the way, with the line you're carefully navigating down, because I don't know whether or not is a manifestation happening. I don't know whether it's cosmic ordering. I don't know whether it is just crazy serendipity, or the fact we're in a simulation. I don't know what it is. But all I know is that this week I said to Abby, you know, I really want to start upping our PR, and I really want to do more PR. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to a journalist within 24 hours. I'm like, I said to her, sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways, but, you know, whether it is just the neuroscience, or the fact that our subconscious, and we're going, right, we want to do this, and then we're just becoming more attuned and more alert to, you know, to that stuff happening, or whether there are greater powers at play. I don't really care. That everyone should believe exactly what they need to believe, because I can't explain so much of what's happened. Those are people who have heard me tell stories before of the craziest serendipitous stories ever that happen. But I do believe that as long as you put something, you know, whether you write it down, or you commit to it, or you visualize it, actually inevitably, somewhere along the line, it's only going to help you do it. Whatever way you think it's going to happen, it will just happen, right?
It will. And I think if you're moving in that direction, anyway, so you're making those steps for it to happen, it will happen. And I think also it's about having the confidence as well. So when you're in those situations where, you know, things are starting to happen, it's then having the confidence to then see it through. And I think that's the key thing, is then kind of going, right, okay, now everything is starting to come through. And, you know, that's where also kind of self-sabotage can start to kind of creep in a little bit. So actually it's then having that confidence and that, that ability to just to kind of really jump on it and really see it through. So I think the main thing is just to stay true to where you stay true to your intention, and then somehow, you know, if you're moving forward, it will happen. Something good will happen. If you're moving forward, something good will happen.
I love what you said then about self-sabotage, because it's something that I have a word that I've only really discovered in the last, I think, 8 weeks. Like 8 weeks ago, I started recognizing that certain people that I get to work with, they self-sabotage. They will start to just do things that are just they just go. I used to sort of, you call it on tilt, but it is a self-sabotage situation. Yeah. You're right. They'll suddenly get some breakthrough on some route they're going. It get a little bit tough, and then they'll just go and do something. They'll give up completely, rather than just seeing it through that very difficult bit that most people have one step before the point of their biggest successes. And you know, and I always said, you know, just recently, I said, if I write another book, I'm going to call it "How the Fuck to Stay on Track," you know, and stop self-sabotaging. Because I feel like, you know, what you just said is so true. It's like once you start to get that success, it's the persistence, the grit, and the you know, maintaining the focus and not getting too sidelined by new shiny toys or other things really take you away from what you're trying to get to. So listen, Caroline, it's been amazing talking to you. I can't believe where an hour has gone, but well, we certainly have covered lots today, and I'm really grateful for you giving up the time. I guess everyone can find you on LinkedIn if they need to follow you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, absolutely. Look me up on LinkedIn.
Reach out to Caroline.
It's been brilliant.
And we'll put our details in the show notes. And have an amazing rest of the week. We have a big England football. You going to watch the football later?
I am indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Cool. So, we'll back England tonight. And thank you to everyone listening today.
Brilliant.
And